What is up, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to WP Workshop. So there's been a lot going on in companies like Google, OpenAI, Anthropic and so on. They've been releasing new models left and right, and they all brag about the new model, the next model, always being significantly better than the previous one, and of course significantly better than what the competition has. Obviously. And the focus is clearly on coding, on the coding abilities of those new models. It's been like that for a couple of years now. But what I am most interested in is not the coding, but writing. Can you use those new models to write you a decent piece of article, copy, email even, or a tweet? And my argument, my hot take is that basically there hasn't been any improvement over the last couple of years. The writing abilities of LLMs has maxed out in, 2023 or something. Or to say it differently, today's models won't write you a better email. And yeah, let me show you what I mean. So we've all seen, the announcements and so on. So the latest one being Gemini 3.5, as always, frontier intelligence with action. So this is the release post and I'm not gonna go through it. But the only thing basically I want to show you is that the focus is clearly on coding. So all of those companies, all the major labs, they don't care about anything else other than coding and what they call now agentic work, right? So all those benchmarks highlight the model's ability to code stuff and to do agent stuff. I am simplifying heavily, but just, bear with me. So, all the benchmarks are about that. And if we go to the original release post of GPT 5.5, it is the same thing all over again. All the benchmarks indicate that this model is awesome at coding, and, they even have some software demos of things supposedly developed with this model. So yeah, they want us to think that the next model is always better, right? But even when it comes to coding, it turns out that, there's been some problems. I mean, there's been a lot of messages like this one on various forums, on Reddit specifically, where people basically say that, the newest model isn't really that great. And this is not just about GPT, it's, about all of them. So they should be good at coding, but for some reason they are not always that good. And, I have more posts like that. I just did a quick search about that. And then we also have Theo, who just published a video yesterday or 2 days ago, I think, about this new model of Google's Gemini 3.5. And well, he's basically roasting it. He's saying that the model is no good for anything. And then when you consider the cost of it, it's just ridiculous to use. And you know what? The labs, the main companies, they don't even let you pick some of the older models for work. If I go, to the selector here, all I can do is, choose any of those. But what about 5, GPT 5 or 4.0, my favorite old school model? You cannot use them, right? The only way you can use them is through something like OpenRouter. So if you want to check out, even GPT 4.0, you can still do it through here. But other than that, it's just not available. So what about writing, right? So I am interested in, all sorts of writing work, editing work, basically working with text, and finding a way to improve your workflow with AI would be great, right? Isn't that the promise from 4 years ago or something? We should be here already, right? So yeah, I just prepared a really simple task for the LLMs. Basically, write me a tweet, and the tweet is about a video I supposedly made about how to wheelie an adventure bike, and I have some rules for the tweet. So simple thing. So I send it off to a number of models and then analyzed the results. So let me just show you the most interesting results, right? So first off, we have the new HY3 model versus DeepSeek V4 Flash. This one, I don't even know what it is, but I picked it because it's one of the most popular models for text at OpenRouter today. So I just decided, to try it out. So this is the prompt. Those are the tweets I got. And an interesting thing about this one. So just take a look at the amount of reasoning that this model needed to do to give me the tweet. It's just incredible. It goes through the rules that I set for the tweet. It has tons of those. Wait, but a tweet is short, right? And so on. Wait, first, avoid promotional. Wait, let's draft first. And it just goes on and on and on, which is interesting. But at the end of it, the tweet is workable. Then we have Sonnet 4.6. again, I think it's a nice tweet. It starts with, a personal take. And then we have GPT 5.5, the newest model of them all, and just look at the terrible tweet that it created. It's like, new video is up, the title, and then I walked through the main steps for learning the wheelie and so on. I mean, it certainly doesn't look like the pinnacle of text generation, right? And for comparison, GPT 5.4 mini, which is a lot cheaper, it's actually better because it starts like more personally. Just put up a new video, right? And then finally, we have the Google Camp with the newest Gemini 3.5 Flash, which created the worst tweet of them all, I think, because it's just generic as they come, I think, at least in my point of view. Gemini 3 Flash preview is kind of interesting, with this equation, but I cannot use it in a tweet, unfortunately, but kind of I like it. And then the cheapest model of them all, Gemini 2.5 Flash, you can still use it through OpenRouter, and it's not good, but the cost difference is just significant enough that you might as well just use that instead of 3.5 because it's way cheaper. Okay, so what I did afterwards, so those are the tweets. I'm gonna post them in the video description as well. You can make up your own mind if they are good or not. But then I just also took them and I asked Opus 4.6 about, what makes a good tweet. And then I asked the model to grade my tweets. So, it did some work and it graded those tweets. So I put it all in a table, and I also added the cost of generating each of them. And since, those numbers are really small, I just, added one more line that summarizes the cost per 100 of those tweets, which is maybe, a bit easier to digest. So do you see any outliers? Do you see anyone, dominating? I mean, 5.5 is the newest, greatest model, and Gemini 3.5 Flash as well. They should have the highest scores, right? But unfortunately, that is not the case. And of course, those tweets, they are different. I mean, they use different words. They have slightly different structures, but for the most part, they are basically the same. There are just minor differences. There isn't a winner, really. This is basically the same quality of work. And it's disappointing, really, because you would think that after 4 more years of development, whenever we first saw, GPT 3.5 and so on, that after 4 years of more development, we should see huge improvements. And when it comes to writing emails, writing tweets, writing articles even, there is no improvement. It's all the same stuff, more or less. I mean, what you would expect to see is basically, right, something like that, the newest models are the best ones and this is what they should look like, right? But unfortunately, this is not the case. They are not the best. They are just average, like everything else. And once you start taking the cost into account, generating 100 tweets with GPT 5.5 is gonna be 70 cents, roughly the same with the new Gemini. But Gemini 3 Flash is gonna do it for 4 cents, 2.5 for 2 cents. So there's no reason even to use the more expensive models for work like that. So more or less, if you could do something with AI with those models 2 years ago, or even 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when it comes to text, you can still do basically the same thing today. And the quality is gonna be nearly the same. If you couldn't do something 2 years ago, 4 years ago, then you still can't do it. So where is the improvement exactly? I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I know it's in coding. This is all the focus right now. Nobody cares about your Twitter, about your emails, about your blog posts. None of the labs. OpenAI doesn't care, Anthropic doesn't care, Google certainly doesn't care. At this moment, I would be really surprised if any of the labs introduce a model that's actually visibly better at text. But yeah, you let me know what you think. So have you been using any of those models for working with text? Do you see any improvements? Don't forget to like, subscribe. I'm Karol. You can find me at wpwork.shop and see you next time.